Recording is on.
Hello, everyone. If you're watching this, thank you so much. It is the 15th of August 2024, and this is UX Research call number 39. We're almost hitting 40. And this call is about Gen Z and UX research, and we are here with Autumn. It seems to be the two of us for now, but if it's just the two of us, then we're very happy to just push on and get the research done. So, Autumn, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Um I've just been since I got back from like the national conference, I've just been thinking like a lot about this research plan and I've been talking to a lot of people, so I just want to kind of jump in and learn more about what other people think and get their perspectives and then like start creating questions and next steps so
I
that
agree with
I can
you.
like start to build it out.
I agree. So, I was thinking, so I haven't had a rough idea for this call, but if you had any ideas of things you'd really like to get done, just share them with me. So, I was thinking we can go through the research plan and chat about it for a little bit.
Mhm.
And then, after we go through the research plan, because the research plan has two parts to the research. You're going to be actually interviewing Bitcoin companies, and then you're also interviewing Gen Z as well. So I thought maybe it's a nice exercise to start to gather questions that you can ask these companies. Because I feel like in our last call, we actually touched on the questions that you can ask Gen Z.
Mhm.
So if we can narrow down more on the company questions to get you further along.
Yeah.
Because then the next step is basically sitting across the table from them and having those calls. Like,
Mhm.
done. So yeah, do you want to share the link to the research plan Google document that you put together?
Sure. Do I just put it in the chat?
Yeah, that should work great. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Let's open it up. I will go ahead and share my screen.
Um, so that was one thing I wanted to was to go over the research plan
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like dissect it a little bit, maybe get more specific in certain places,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but then also come up with questions. But another thing that I wanted to like know a bit more about was I know that there is like a lot of the jobs that you think of when it comes to Bitcoin are as like okay, developer or designer, like a lot of like already existing courses or things usually help developers or designers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to kind of get a better idea of like people in business or like other different um, fields of study that students might be wanting to put like intersect their Bitcoin interest with this thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and have a better understanding about that because I like on this research project I had put like policy, like the entrepreneurship side of it, then design and um, development.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I'm a business major, I didn't fully because I haven't been exposed a lot to that business side of things and like talk to a lot of companies about what that process is like and what skills you need to know and what you need to know. I didn't fully know how to like describe that one job. And so I have an idea, but I think that would be another concept that I'd want to kind of dig into a little bit of like
Mm-hmm.
how do we help this space as a whole, not just through development and design, even though those are really important right now and those can
Mm-hmm.
focus. How do we also build it out in the business side of things and the regulation side of things and the human rights side of things, like and and find students that are interested in those areas and then help them understand it in Bitcoin terms. I know that
Okay.
that's like a whole bigger thing in and of itself. And maybe it's easier to just start quick and simple with like just the design and the development, which
Mm-hmm.
probably
Mm-hmm.
the development's going to be like a major one, but I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that or maybe that's a further down the line project. I'm not sure.
So it feels to me, and I'm trying to fully grasp it, like you're wanting to go a little bit into the regulation and the human rights side of thing, and not really touch on the clear black and white like design and development side of thing. But you also want to look at like regulation, humanitarian effect, and then those possibilities of those roles, and then students filling those roles and how their skill sets match those roles. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, a
yeah.
little bit. Just so that, because in order to like build out the space, you need developers and designers, but you also need other roles that will continue the companies and the entrepreneurship and everything else that's pushing this space forward. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if students, because right now students are only if you're a designer or developer, you can have an easier connection with Bitcoin, like if you're interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's so many other people that are interested in Bitcoin and they want to kind of apply their major or their work of choice to Bitcoin, but they don't really know how to do that because there isn't a big dialogue happening about how those things happen that
Mm-hmm.
you can ask people with. So, yeah,
You
I
know,
would say that you summed it up pretty well.
actually, what actually occurred to me is while you're interviewing these Bitcoin companies, what you can actually do is you can structure your questions in such an open way where you can then to move one of the questions around the humanitarian and the regulatory needs that they might have. And
Mhm.
what you can do is you can say, let me actually see and identify within Bitcoin companies if there's a need for like a person who's in charge of conversations with regulatory authorities. And by finding out this information, and then if they then give you the green light and say, well, yes, this is the case, then the next phase, as you said, of the research could then be going down that rabbit hole, or trying to see the match between the needs in that area.
Okay.
So you can use this initial research to kind of poke at it and say, like, this is my hypothesis. Like, I have a hypothesis right now, and my hypothesis is that I think that we're not touching on the non-obvious stuff. Like, we're only touching on development and design right now. And I think we need to touch on the non-obvious stuff, which is what, like, this is like the feeling like I'm getting.
Yeah.
And then through your research, you can pull out like, okay, well, 4 out of 5 Bitcoin companies said that they need help with the regulatory side of things or the law side of things. Well, it's clear that there's more need for that. So how do we match the needs of the students now?
Hmm.
you know so we can
Yes.
use that in one of the questions. Let's create a whole, let's try to see what questions we can get around that, just so we can keep it nice and open, and pull that information out when you're interviewing them. Does that sound good?
Yes, that sounds perfect.
Okay. What were we going to do now? Look through the research plan.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you want to just speak a bit about this plan? Is my screen visible, by the way? Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Sure. Uh, so basically, what I tried to write down is this was my first uh research plan that I've had to write. So I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of just going off what I think I need, and then also the reference um that you had sent me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the idea of it is to so the background is about many Bitcoin companies need workers who understand Bitcoin and have the skills, but not enough people are qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also found that many Gen Zers are interested in Bitcoin and have already existing skills that are valuable to the development of the Bitcoin space,
Mm-hmm.
but they need some guidance on first steps.
Yeah.
So, my goal of applying this research is to find the perfect bridge between these two worlds, to get companies the people that they need and want to hire, and
Right.
also um, finding and maybe even like helping to teach the students who want to be fed into those jobs. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of the goal of this entire thing. And it would be the research would be gathered through interviews and surveys,
Mhm. Mhm.
And those two things would be from two different parties. So one party would be students,
Mhm.
understanding what they want, what they're looking for, what their interests are. Um, why haven't they just like kind of tried to jump into this on their own? Like, do they need a community to be a part of? Would they rather do it like async and just have like kind of a checklist to do?
Mhm.
Understanding how to best help them
Yeah.
to build the skills and work in the space. And then for companies, just trying to interview them and understand where's the space heading, where where should students focus on uh, to better have their chances of getting a job in the Bitcoin space, and also like what type of characters are they looking for? What kind of jobs are high in demand right now? Um, and so hopefully what I'll do is take the two insights that I get from both students and companies and find, okay, this is like maybe a good course or a good like third platform that can help connect these two in the best way possible that's helpful for both companies and students.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so
That's
yeah.
clear. That's this part over here is really clear. Could we dive into this bit a little bit more because I like it that you've split it here. So, what was your thinking around doing interviews around with companies and then
Mhm.
surveys with students? Like, how did you choose to do interviews with companies, and how did you choose to make the decision to do surveys with the students?
Um, so my initial feeling was that interviews are very conversational. And
Mm-hmm.
you can sit on these calls for a while and just have really good insight be passed back and forth through conversational questioning and just like meeting new people.
Yeah.
And I think what that allows you to do is kind of create a more general overview of what companies actually need because you can't just give a company a survey and say, what are the things that you're looking for? Because chances are it's going to be like pretty much the same. They're looking for qualified individuals who will work hard, who are willing to do the work, like who will figure it out on their own. And the insight that you'll get from giving companies surveys probably won't be in as depth as you would need it and wouldn't be very helpful if you're trying to create or like come to a conclusion about it.
Right.
So that's why I was thinking with interviews, companies would be better because you get a better idea of what's out there, and the interviewee can like go off of what they're saying and be like, "Can you expand on that?" Or "Can you what do you think about this?"
Yeah.
And so this way you get I think a more niche idea of the individual companies within their individual respective fields of
Mm-hmm.
what they're looking for and what they need, which I think will be more helpful for students.
Yeah.
Um, the reason why I chose surveys for students, or predominantly students, is because a lot of them are within the same boat. They know
Right.
what their goal is, but they don't know how to get there. And so they're gonna have a lot of the same insight. They're gonna say, "This is my problem. This is what I'm nervous for. I don't feel qualified." Blah 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 blah. And most of the time, I think it'll be pretty similar with the
Mm-hmm.
things that they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't fully know what those pain points are or what they're looking for. And so if I have a survey that they can take that'll just have the same questions, it'll be easier to get a broader idea of what parts I should look into.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that was kind of my my thought process
What do
on the
you
interview
What do you
survey.
think of this idea? I think that your thought process is spot on because your thought process around the companies is really like, let's go in there and then let's just get our fingers in and then get more granular.
Mhm.
But I almost feel like maybe the same approach might be also useful for the students, but it is going to be a little bit more time consuming.
Yeah, that
Um,
was another thing. Like, I
it's
know
going
that
to be time
interviewers are
consuming.
gonna like have to set up the calls and like because I've done like research interviews before, I remember how like much time it took just to run like 30-minute interviews with like 15 people.
It's going
Um,
to be very time consuming. And I think we have to be mindful about your time and sort of balance that out with like okay, how do we like, the only thing with surveys is that usually, like with survey responses, I think that surveys might work in the sense if we don't do like, like A, B, C responses, we'd have to keep them a little bit more like long form answers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if we keep them long form answers, then we're getting that juicy niche umbrella sort of overview.
Mm,
But if we have these like ABC answers, then there's a chance that we're almost like forcing them to answer the question in a certain way.
yeah.
And we don't want to do that because then we're actually making assumptions on their responses. Um, so that's the only bit that I have with the surveys where I was a little bit like, I don't know if surveys would be the right one for this one. Keep them long form questions. Um, And then we'd have to be very mindful about who we share the survey with. So I wouldn't suggest posting the survey on any social media or in any communities because we have to make sure that it's actually Gen Z answering the questions.
Yeah. The main thing that I was thinking is like leveraging the Bitcoin Students Network
Yeah.
because that's all college students. Um, I would say, and also because they're Bitcoin only focused clubs, you
Yeah.
have people that are in all different majors that are interested in Bitcoin and maybe would want to work on it. So I think that that's a good first step. Um, and I'll that was like my first initial like brainstorm about who I would ask because I know that that community is pretty big. But
That's
also I could
amazing.
ask like people that I know myself and be like, "Hey, like would you want to participate in something like this?"
That would be amazing. I've experienced it with research before where we've created surveys, and then if we put the survey like in the community or on Twitter, like it's we just don't even know who's answering it. So
Yeah.
that was the only thing with the surveys. I'm like, okay, let's just. I kind of looked at the two things with the surveys that might go wrong, and then I was like, okay, how can we find solutions to this? But I
Mhm.
think that because you have the network, and I think maybe you have quite a good relationship with the network, I think you'll be able to get quite a few responses.
I think so too. Because there's a good amount of schools, and within each school, there's a good amount of people in
Yeah,
each club.
yeah.
Um, and like even when we were in Nashville, the Bitcoin Students Network hosted like a satellite event
Mm-hmm.
for students only, but other people had showed up as well. Um, but probably like 150 students showed up to this thing. And that was just because of they had claimed the pass um, for Gen, like, because Gen B partnered with Bitcoin Magazine to give students access to the Bitcoin conference for free, and so a good amount of people signed up, and at least like 150 students showed up to this event to network with kids their own age, and so
Amazing.
like you have a lot of people that are my age that are interested in it, and it was the first time ever in my life that I got to interact with that many people my age and have these
Amazing.
conversations. Um, and so I think a lot more of those need to happen. But I think what that just showed me is there's a lot of them out there. And there's a lot of them in university that want to be part of stuff like this. And so I think because of this network, like I can get a good amount of responses.
That's amazing. That's amazing, really. So if we could use, I know Google is not, everyone's first preference because of privacy, but I think if we keep it very privacy focused, the questions, we're not asking any personal information. We can get some clear demographic information and just not, we're not taking any names or anything like that because, as you know, Bitcoiners are very privacy focused.
Yeah.
And if I think if you'd like to share the research public when you're finished with it, then it's nice to be able to share it in such a way where you can share as much as possible. So we'll avoid any questions that might reveal the identity of the person. We'll just keep it very focused on the end goal, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
Cool.
had felt like. the most appropriate as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's perfect. Good. I like this approach. So we'll go with surveys and we do long form interviews for the companies. Okay, that's clear. Okay. And then you listed some companies here you'd like to interview.
This I haven't put a lot of thought into it, and this was kind of like one thing I wanted suggestions on is like what companies do you think would be best to talk to about this? And um, I don't know, do you have a suggestion on how many companies I should talk to?
Yeah, top of head, I think it might be nice to think about the different groups. You know, so for example, like Chain Code Labs is very different to Strike just because of what they do, you know.
Right.
Strike is a Bitcoin wallet, and Chain Code Labs tends to be around, you know, doing work for the whole ecosystem at large. Um, so maybe you could think about, okay, like what are all the different, you know, areas in Bitcoin? You know, you have the wallet. So let's just, what if you put the name wallet next to this one? Okay, for example. Unchained Capital is also, I'm not, just gonna,
That's like an exchange.
this is an
Uh,
exchange.
or it's more like self custody.
Okay. So this is not a wallet, it's an exchange.
But no, you can't. Yeah, okay. I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then Galaxy, is this
it's a tech company. I can do more research on what each does, and then come up with categories for that.
yeah, that would be good. Because then, you know, it feels almost like we could almost have like wallet.
Yeah, I think if
Um,
we have maybe five different categories, and then put companies underneath that, I think that
yeah.
would be the best.
And then you could kind of, you know, you could say, okay, I'm going to do two from the wallet side, and then I'm going to do two from the exchange side, and then I'm going to do two from the ecosystem side. Or you could even say you want to do one, you know, if you find that there's more categories, you know, to sort of spread it out a little bit more,
Okay.
you then do one from each, and then you end up with five. I feel like five would be good enough if you interview one person from each company.
Okay.
Um,
Then could we just brainstorm what the five categories can be right now, and then before our next call, I'll research what companies I'd want to put under each of those categories.
yeah, I feel like, you know, chain code is more education, and
Hmm.
you know they're educating the developers.
And it's very open source
It's
focused.
very open source, you know, and a lot of work they do as well is for the larger ecosystem, you know.
Yeah.
They do research as well. I know they had a research event recently. Um, so they're just, you know, okay. And then Unchained is an exchange. Galaxy is a tech company. Strike is a wallet. Okay. So let's try to think. So we've got open source, we've got Unchained Capital. I'm just trying to think of all of the sort of Bitcoin companies that exist. I'm mostly on the wallet side of things because of the work that I do. So I'm not super familiar with, you know, besides Chain Code Labs, I'm not very familiar with the other sort of, you know, we can always ask ChatGTP, you know.
I had a conversation with Jonas
Yeah.
like last week,
Mm-hmm.
and he had said that the Bitcoin space can be like broken down into three different buckets:
Okay.
entrepreneurship, industry, and open source. Um, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought like that was pretty cool because you either start a company in the Bitcoin space, you either are
Mm-hmm.
part of a company that already exists and is trying to help the space grow, or you're in open source. And that's a lot of how like the space grows at the roots of it, I feel. So maybe
Hmm.
I mean, they're pretty open ended, but I think maybe it's a starting point.
It could be a starting point. I like that. So we have open source. Under open source, you could have all of your wallets. And then industry would be sort of what would be more industry, you said?
Industry would be um, more like the businesses and companies that are in the Bitcoin space. So probably like exchanges or like tech companies. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Yeah, nice. And then entrepreneurship, how is that? How would we define what that would be? I'm just wondering because, yeah, so an exchange doesn't fit under open source, so that's good. Although a wallet would fit under open source,
yeah,
right? A wallet could also fit under entrepreneurship because a wallet could also be two developers who decide to start a wallet together.
right. So they
Hmm.
all kind of are linked.
They are. I'm wondering if we could make entrepreneurship and open source into one bucket. I think there might be some overlaps with entrepreneurship and open source.
I also think that this suggestion he brought up these three buckets because it's from the side of if students are trying to enter in the space, what aspect do they want to go into? Do they want to
Oh,
be an entrepreneur? Do they want to work in an already existing Bitcoin company, or do they want to work on open source? And
mm,
so I think this wasn't these three suggestions weren't just putting it into like what companies go under these things. It's more of what students would want to focus on. So
right.
I
Now I
they
get
can
it.
put that out there.
This is a good way you phrased it. So, okay. So, a student could want to be an entrepreneur, a student could want to work more in the industry, okay. Or they could have, okay. So, how about we do this? What if we brainstorm which Bitcoin companies fit underneath these, and some of them might overlap as well. But if you could say, okay, so let me ask you then, yeah, if you're studying business at university right now,
Mhm.
if you wanted to really be an entrepreneur and experience that side of things, which Bitcoin company would pull you the most? Would be like, yeah, I want to go work for them.
Unchained Capital. I've been wanting to
Okay.
work for them for like so long.
Unchained Capital, I hope you heard that. Okay. Okay, cool. If there was like something that was more industrial, like a business or a company in the Bitcoin space, let's even say like an exchange. Which one do you think would you want to work for?
um,
I mean, no one's going to quote you
maybe
here. Like we're just
River.
throwing out stuff. Sorry?
River.
Okay. Okay. Um, open source.
I think open source would have to be like on a lot of like design projects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so maybe just Bitcoin design community.
See,
Um,
there you go. There you go.
yeah, I would probably say
Cool. So now we have Unchained Capital, River, and Bitcoin Design Community. And we could even go one step further. We could say, hey, we're going to leave it like this, and we're going to have very in depth interviews of an hour. Or we can say, hey, let's add one more in under each category. What would you like to do?
that. I kind of feel like it would be cool to have like two different companies that focus in on like the same thing
Mm-hmm.
within the call.
Okay.
So I'd say probably two.
Okay. So who else would we have next to? You already have Galaxy as a tech company. Are you okay with adding Galaxy in on the industry as well?
Yeah.
So how about we add Galaxy in here? And then, okay, okay. Mm-hmm. Technically, chain code would also fit under open source.
Open.
Would you want to add them under open source?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we just came to that conclusion like at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And then that just leaves this one.
Uh,
Who else could we add in under entrepreneurship?
could Strike work for that?
I mean, I've met, yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship, yeah, I mean, they started, it's basically the whole startup culture of it started very small from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So I guess so. And that's it.
Okay.
Done. Does that feel good for you?
Yeah.
So it would basically be now thinking of what questions you're going to ask and how long the interviews are going to be. And so the next phase, I would say, is basically moving towards what questions are we going to ask are these um, companies, and not forgetting the outlier which you mentioned, which is being also getting a question around the legal side of things as well, and the humanitarian side of things. So let's just do not forget that as well. So questions for them, and then also questions for the students as well. So the next phase is what questions can we ask them, and then how I would do it is I create a Google document, a separate Google document for the company questions, a separate Google document for the company questions, and then basically the Google document for the student questions, you basically just like make that into a Google form.
Okay.
So that's pretty.
Have you ever used Typeform?
Yeah, I did. I don't know. We didn't tend to use Typeform a lot in the Bitcoin design community. I'm not actually sure why. I think
Okay.
it's fine too. I mean, I think if it works, right? Is that
Yeah.
something that you'd
I
like
think they
to?
also have like charts and graphs, and I mean I've liked it when I've used it in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and I've used Google Forms a lot, but also I think just on like the receiving end of filling out a Google form, I've just
I know what you're gonna say. I know what
I've
you're gonna
come
say.
up with like
Yeah.
a perspective on it. So I like Typeform, and
If you want
I
to do
like it.
Typeform, you do Typeform. You know,
Okay.
this is your research project, and if you want it to have the feel that you want it to have, then that's what you do. You know.
Okay.
Um, we also do need to think about privacy as well. In the script that we're going to script out for both. So at the beginning of the type form, we're going to have something along the lines of, like this research will be made publicly available. Do you consent to that? And then it's also going to be the same when you have the interviews with the companies. You can say, this research will be made publicly available, but the name of your company will not be included. Your name will also not be included, but the details of our questions and our conversation will be included. Are you okay with this?
Okay. So we shouldn't be able to showcase what companies we interviewed, right?
Yeah, I think it might be better for their privacy not to mention who we
Okay.
interview. It might be, maybe it will just allow them to be more free and honest in their answers, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I
So
totally.
that's going to kind of be like by the way, before we kick this off, so you do that verbally with the companies, and then on the type form, it's basically going to be one of the first questions. Do you consent that this research and some of the information that you'll be giving will be made publicly available? And we can probably just find a disclaimer, somewhere that's been used before, just to make sure that we're using the right wording.
Okay.
So that's just very important, from the get-go to make people aware that, you want your research to be public.
Okay.
And then it's basically the questions. I mean, we could, in this session, actually start to brainstorm questions for the companies. And then as a next phase, you could put that together in a Google document and even put together that bit of information like, hi, my name's basically, it'll start off with like, hi, my name's Autumn. I'm doing research for Gen Z, to understand how the relationship between Gen Z and companies. And are you okay with parts of our conversation being publicly available, because this research will be public? So you will have a little bit of like an opening paragraph, and then we'll have these questions like blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
And that's it. So we could brainstorm questions. We could literally just, let me get in the Fig Jam right now. Let's see. I'm just opening Figma on my screen so we can just get going, because then we could do that in the last 20 minutes.
Okay.
If that feels good for you.
Yeah.
And then we could then, in the meantime, then the groundwork would be to put together that Google document for the companies, opening sentence, and then the questions. And then, yeah, that's it. So,
I opened up a doc already, and
did you? Okay.
yeah, so I can share that with
Go ahead. Go ahead. Is that this one? Oh,
Oh, I can put it in the chat.
we can also link it. Let's link it at the top of the.
Oh, okay.
That's a nice one. So let's just say company interview questions right here. Oh, you're already there. Perfect. So just added it in all the way at the top of this one.
Okay.
And then we can link to it.
Did it send to you, or should I link it myself?
Yeah, go ahead and link it. Feel free.
Oh, okay. Oops, that's not right.
Don't worry. All good.
Why does it keep doing that?
Let's try. Shall I? How about I grab the link? Is that the link? Oh, it's gone.
Oh, sorry. Here, wait. I'll do this.
Yeah, all right. Let me see if I can grab it. And I will just put it in here. I will insert it. Here we go. And then I'm going to hop into the document, and then I'm going to share my screen.
Okay. I kind of put this doc as like interview and surveys, but we can just do interview questions.
Yeah, that's the companies. Okay.
Questions.
So you do company. Yeah, so this will just be an opening intro and asking for legal consent. Okay, and then, yeah.
Then we can just do that.
Yeah, perfect. So there'll be the first bit where they'll just be asking for these, there'll be this intro. This one will be in person, right? Because the company will be Yeah, good job. Or in person?
I would say it's most likely gonna be online, like on a call,
Okay.
virtual call. Um,
All right. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then we do here companies to be interviewed. Yeah.
oh wait, we can actually. I don't know how best to organize this.
This is a live working space. Okay. Yay. We are getting organized here. Okay. So we have opening intro, companies to be interviewed. Yeah, we can just put the companies, maybe put the companies at the top just so that, um, here we go. And then we can move into company interviews. All right. And then we'll have the questions here. Oh, I just heard okay. We have the questions here.
Should I delete this one?
Which one? Sorry. Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. So, how about we brainstorm for the next 15 minutes? And this is just brainstorming. These don't need to make it the final cut, but we can just brainstorm the questions together and then we can just start bullet pointing in some questions. Now, let's look at your goal that you would like for companies. Let's go back to your goal. Your goal is to understand what companies are looking for, what they need. Let's just grab this here. I'm going to write this as goal. Hmm. And your goal is to understand what companies are looking for, what they need, and what's most in demand. Okay. So we can use that as like a springboard, to think of what questions we can ask.
I also think maybe we should come up with like 3 separate categories of questions.
Mm,
Like the entrepreneurship questions would be more about like, all right, how do you go out and find a problem and what's needed in the space and then find a solution to it and then create a company based off of that or like create a project off of that. Like that's what the questions for entrepreneurship would be. But like with industry, it's more like what are the jobs that are in demand right now and what companies are looking for just for like skill wise. It's more skill wise, I think. And then open source is like it seems like if you're going to get funding for an open source project, you need to do the proof of work first. Then the company finds you and says, I want to fund you. And then you get that funding to continue working. So it's like, how should they come up with a portfolio of what to work on and things like
right, right. So I put these in. I like your way of thinking. I like how you're thinking about this. I put these in. I put these in here. I'm just bullet pointing it because I do like bullet points. I just don't know why, but don't
me too.
mind. Don't mind me and my bullet points. But I actually like the like neat little tidy bullet points. Like these are not cute. So these are
I understand the
you.
aesthetic of it.
Yeah. This looks nicer, right? Okay.
Yes, I like that
Let's
one.
just bullet point this and make it happy. Okay. I'm glad we vibe on the bullet point thing.
This is something that a lot of people don't understand.
They don't understand.
Also, using like Arial, like the
Right.
font. No, I can't. I can never do it.
Okay.
I
Do,
have to
do,
always change it.
shall we tidy these ones up too, just while we're at it? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. Okay.
Oops.
Oops.
Sorry,
Oh
I
yeah.
messed.
No, you go ahead and do that. I'll stay out of it.
Oh, why are they not dots? Sometimes technology is hard for me too.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. I just added in a little bit of an opener there. Just, companies will be interviewed across three different areas because, and then I'll leave you that to fill in, the rationale behind that, you
Mhm.
know, fill in. Okay. Okay. And then we can just get going with questions. We can just, brainstorm questions for the next 10 minutes and then we can wrap it up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I think what may be interesting here as well. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's. I wanted to take my own bullet point, but it's keeping me in the same line. So I don't know where to type now. Okay, let me type here. I'll go type on the first line. Um,
I just had a thought and then I blanked.
hmm.
Um,
We're flying away here. Okay, let's keep on going. Um,
I think that the majority of the questions that I want to ask are mainly for like industry and open source.
Really? Tell me why you're feeling that right now. Tell me.
Because I feel like if people are going to get into the entrepreneurship side of things,
Mm-hmm.
there's a I would say it's a different learning curve than like open source and industry, but like there's so much that you need to know in so many different aspects in order to do that. And so if my end goal of this project is to like create a community that can help support you in like getting a job in Bitcoin, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the entrepreneurship side of it is too broad. Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
we can have like a smaller section that or like if you're interested in this, like you can ask these people and leverage like a certain network. But for the most part, like I don't know how many Gen Zers are going to be like, I'm going to start my own Bitcoin company.
I agree with you on this. I
Um,
actually really agree. And you know, if you niche, if you narrow down your research and be very granular, and you say you're only even going to focus on open source Bitcoin companies,
yeah.
then your research is focused only on open source Bitcoin companies.
And I
And
think
then,
that will
you know,
create more quality over quantity because then
exactly, exactly.
more insight on one thing.
So, what would you like to do, Autumn? Would you like to narrow it down and only focus on open source? Because, you know, the thing is there are businesses and companies that would still only fit under open source too, that it would be even
Right.
one bucket, right?
Hmm.
So then your whole research could just be research on open source Bitcoin companies and their needs and challenges and how we can match that to Gen Z. Um,
Okay.
how does that feel to you?
I think that that's a good direct. I feel like I'm gonna sound like really mean when I say this, but I feel like when you have college students who are like about to graduate or maybe in like their second or third year, a lot of the time they're like, I don't really have any skills because in the education system, you can't work on those skills to like build up your portfolio. So they're more like, I need something that'll tell me what to do, and then I build up my skills, and then maybe I can work in open source.
There we go.
Um, and so although I think that like a good amount of people will probably be interested in open source, I can't help but feel that they're just not at the place in their life to like because if you're working in open source, it's a lot of time and energy trying to spend on
Mm-hmm.
just understanding what you have to do. Like you have an
Mm-hmm.
end goal, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to figure out the stepping stones to get there. At least that's
Mm-hmm.
been like
Mm-hmm.
my experience with like the design. Um,
Okay, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. This is the challenge.
okay,
We have a few interview questions now, and it
okay.
feels to me like since writing down these questions, you've started to have these like little pokes inside you internally, like, yeah, I don't think I want to do entrepreneurship. So how about you sort of you sleep on it for one night and you let that simmer, right?
Okay.
And the reason why I'm suggesting is, and the simmering, so you're gonna like leave this pot of stew or sauce to simmer. And the
Mhm,
reason why I'm suggesting this is you're gonna ask yourself the question, how narrow do I wanna scope this out?
mhm.
And then by asking yourself that question,